Hey, good afternoon for those that just came in. My name is Cameron Irby. I'm a part of the support team at Decisions, and I'll be the Lunch and Learn host today. Throughout the call, please feel free to raise your hands if you have any questions or post your question in the Q&A section or the chat. Looks like we have a few more people join in. I'll just give it a few more minutes. All right, looks like Dave raised his hands.
Hello.
Hello.
We don't have any pre-submitted questions, do you?
I do have one from Ferdinand.
Oh, okay. We'll take care of him first, and then.
Yeah. All right, so let me flip that question. So the question was, is it possible for us to open a form where a name ID, a document must be informed only to save this file in Decisions? The name and ID fields will be used to search for that document that is attached. Perform a search based on the name or ID, in which Decisions returns all stored documents that have that name or ID informed in the search. It should be possible to view or download that found file. If this is possible to do, what is the solution? Okay, so Ferdinanda, I'm going to take off mutes just so you can clarify a bit of what you're asking here. So we want a form to search for a document based on a name or ID. Hey, Ferdinanda, can you hear me fine? I'm going through your use case or your question, your pre-submitted question. I just want to get some clarification on what the ask is here.
Hi, are you here? Are you hearing?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, okay, sorry. I work with Fernanda, and she's out for a while, and I am here to clarify this question. We would like to work with, to know if Decisions could work as a ECM software, just like we wanna attach some documents, but we want also to index the documents so that we can search after.
Yeah, and a part of that would be how you guys are saving that file or documents. Do you know if we want to go use file references, which are saved to the file system, or documents or file data, which are saved to the database?
Yes, file data, not the file system, but data such as maybe name, company, things like that.
Yeah, so with that and fetching documents that way, let me see if I can stop this share and share Decisions. And can you see the
Yes.
the code designer? So yeah, so we would just use this fetch entities and grab documents or file data. And we have fetch criteria here where we select, and again, it will depend on how you would save it. Maybe we would save it under entity description or entity name so that we can fetch it by that. So if we saved it under entity name, we have an input to input whatever that name or ID we would want to set it or search for.
So, what you're saying, we could build a form and a button to search that would call a flow, and this
Yeah,
flow would use fetch entities step.
yeah, correct. And I put together a little bit of this.
Yeah.
So this is where you would have an input for that name or ID, and the button, event button to search. And then this event button would trigger either active form flow,
Mhm.
which pulls up a flow. So that button will run this flow where we have the fetch criteria and everything there. And we can even output that the found documents, depending on how you guys have it set up, to output it back to this document viewer to
Here,
display
yeah.
it here.
Yes, yes, okay. Yes, and maybe because the fetch criteria, we must pass as input all the data, but some of them we may not. The user may not have all the search criteria, so we could build a query also.
Yeah, that's also an option.
Oh yeah, okay, I got it.
Okay, hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, and if you could take David off mute, or David, if you come off mute.
Yeah, I gotcha. I'm wondering, so if there's a way to get a distinct list of complex objects, right? So for example, if I make just a list of strings, there are some steps in there that can give me a distinct list of strings, right? But if I have a list of complex objects, what's the best way, or is there a way to get a list, like a distinct list of those complex objects? Does it make sense?
Yeah. Trying to think of the best way. I don't think we have any native steps for that. That's distinct values. I think I may have found a step. Let me test it really quick. Yeah, David, to your question, I think we'll need to open a support ticket. Just based off of thinking through that, we have to compare each data piece, like with the list of data. So I can see that getting a bit granular in the setup. I don't think it should be too complex, but I'm not too sure what that looks like.
Okay, yeah, no worries. I'll shoot a ticket to support.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we should find a way to do that. All right, I'm just gonna go through the intro again for the folks that came in later. Good afternoon. My name is Cameron Irby. I'm a part of the support team at Decisions. I will be the Lunch and Learn host today. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hands and come off of mute to ask the question, or post that question in the Q&A chat. I know we have a few in the chat. Okay, from Radley, is it possible to make fields in a repeater conditionally required based on the outcome button selected on the parent or main form? So Radley, if you want to come off mute, are you asking if it's if we can make repeaters dynamic in the fields we show?
Well, none of the fields we show. So I have a form and it has a save button and a submit button. It's a big form, so as users maybe want to fill it out, they want to save it and come back to it later. Really, I just want to remove all the validations that are on each of the repeaters that I have. So when they click submit, when they click save, it just saves all the data and doesn't validate anything. On the main form, I've put in an active form flow to clear all validations, but it doesn't look like that impacts the validations that I have in the repeaters. So I'm just wondering how does repeater know that I'm clicking the save versus the submit, if that's even possible?
And the save is like a event button to trigger an active form flow?
Yeah, it's just another button, at the bottom of the form. And that just loops the form back to initiating user as an assignment that they can come back to later.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that one either.
Okay.
Yeah, because the validations would be on the data repeater form per each form control.
Right.
I would say, and we're just kind of trying to stop validations from being thrown.
Yeah, I don't want any when someone clicks save, I don't want any validations on the form anywhere. Main form repeaters, nowhere.
I know in active form flows, there's an option on each form control to just look at this other day. Should be an option for visibility on each control.
Yeah, I've tried
validation.
I've tried the clear all validation step, and I've tried specifically clearing validations on the repeater object. But I don't think that flows into the repeater validations.
Yeah, and it might not. Yeah, I'm not sure if we could do that.
Yeah, the only other thing I was thinking was to have some dummy member of the data structure that I pass in a value and then have form flows on the repeater. You know, if the value equals save, then clear validations. That seemed a little clunky to have dummy members of the data structure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, we should get a support ticket in for this to track this a little better and get a
Okay.
solution for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Did we have any more questions in the chat? Let's see. Again, please feel free to raise your hands and come off of mute to ask a question or post that question in the Q&A chat, and we'll be happy to help you.
I do have another unrelated question if there's nothing else queued up yet for you.
Yeah, shoot.
Is there a way to, once a process folder has been created, is there a way to update the name of that process folder?
Yeah, I would think there would be a way if we would update the database value. But as far as doing it in decisions,
Yeah. Because like in this case that I just described, right? The first when I set up the process folder on save, I set it up as initiated by whoever, because I have no idea what values are going to be in the form at that time. But when they submit the form, I know values are going to be there because they're required, and I want to have a better name for the process folder. I just couldn't figure out how to update that name of the process folder.
Yeah, I don't like and it's probably supposed to be like 7:30 on Thursday.
yeah, I'm trying to see if we have a update step. I think we could just use the
Hey.
update entity step.
What's the question, Cam?
The question is, can we change the process folder name after it's created in decisions?
This folder name?
Yeah, the process folder name.
Oh yeah, sure. But yeah, like you didn't, I don't think you can do it. I don't think there's an action like edit. I think we hide the edit name and description action on the process folder. But you can make an entity action in the flow execution extension, right? That changes the folder name, shows the folder name in a text box, allows you to change it, and then uses like a save entity step. You'd be saving the the folder, not any of the other data objects. So if that makes any sense.
I see a set any description. Rename entity.
Do we have a rename entity step?
I just found one. Yeah.
That sounds like it should work. Yeah. Does it
Okay.
take an ID in?
That takes an entity ID. Is that
Yeah, that'd be the folder ID. With a process folder, there's a couple different data types at play, right?
okay?
There's like there's three data types that make up a process folder: a decisions folder, a folder extension we call flow tracking folder, which gives you like end time and percent complete and some other custom fields, and then your actual data structure, the thing that you have your custom fields on. That's what the back end is comprised of. So the folder, the name you see in the portal is the folder name. So the entity ID is the folder ID. So what I would do is make like an entity action in your flow execution extension. Are you familiar with those?
I am not.
Here, why don't I could share my screen, Cam? Thanks for covering for me while I.
Oh, yes, sir.
You see my screen? All right.
I can't.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going to create a data type, like a flow execution extension. Just, fee test. I'll give it a property here called string1. Now you can create custom context menu actions, right? And the things that what you're going to look for here, just to find it in the doc site, is let's search for entity actions. Not that you should know how to search for that. Let's see, entity action visibility. Where does that take us? Creating entity events, creating user actions.
Okay, I do know this. Sorry, I wasn't. I do know what these are. Yes.
Okay, yeah, so like the folder is an entity, an action in the config folder. The way to think about it is like these actions in the configuration folder, right? And if I come back to my portal here, there's these things, user actions, right? These
Yep.
show up everywhere your data type, your entity shows up at, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just gonna create one here. And if I look at Data Explorer, you'll see this is gonna give me 3 different pieces of data. And to what I was just saying here, your folder, your flow tracking folder, and then your flow extension data, which you'll see mine is named fee test, right? So the thing you're trying to change here is folder entity name. That's where that property lives at. So the ID that you need to give it is specific to the thing. So you like, if I look for rename, oops, sorry, I need to go back to the toolbox. If I look for rename, I didn't know we had a rename entity step, but that's good. And then the entity ID in the entity action would come from like, this is a shortcut folder ID, but it would be folder ID.
Sweet.
And will in the folder service and internal services, there's a set name and description step also.
Mhm. Yep.
That you can use.
And then the new name would be whatever. So here, I guess if I built a form just to make this really work, I'll show you how this could actually look in sort of all the way through. I'm just gonna build a form with a single text box on it. It's gonna keep it ugly here. Like I do. I'll make the button will even stay on the left. So ugly here. Boom. All right. So rename entity. The new name is going to come from the value of my text box here, which I named ASDF. And I'm going to pre-populate the text box with the entity name. So folder, and I'll scroll down to entity name. So if I do this, now I'm going to create a really quick flow here to create my entity with the setup process folder step. So setup process folder. Boom, boom, pick my parent folder. I will say use extension data. I will find my apps.fee test. I will say build data, and I will just put in some garbage text for my description. And I will name my folder to be a test name. And then I'll go ahead and just run this flow now that I can create a process folder. So list flow 1 run. Now I should get a process folder here. And if I right click this, I have a thing called flow 1, which is the name of my flow in my configuration folder. And it's going to show me a form, right, with W001. So I name this test flow name 1 and refresh, and then it'll change the name of my thing. So you're leveraging entity actions and the rename step or the right step, right, whatever step might be, together to give you this behavior if we don't give you the ability to set name and description on the actual the folder itself.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you.
You bet. Were there some questions before that?
Yeah.
I need to get re-asked, Cam.
Yeah, there was one. There were 2. So the first one was David. I'm blanking on what David asked.
I think
Yeah, I
David
got
was
you.
just go ahead, David.
Yeah. So I know you guys have steps in there to do something like if I have a list of strings to be able to create a distinct list of strings, right? Well, if I make a list of complex objects, what's the best way to get a distinct list of that list of those objects? Does it make sense?
That's a tough one. So I've got like a list of accounts. Let's assume I have like a list of like people, right? And that those people have a last name field. and I want a distinct list of all last names.
Ooh, yeah, but more so the people or the person object though.
The whole thing, right?
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Well, okay, so do you just want to deal with all of the people that are like my last name's Pedersen? You want to deal with all the Pedersens together?
Mm, yeah, but I also need the uniqueness of maybe some other attribute on a person too, like their
Okay,
phone number
interesting.
and
I
their
think
address or something like that.
I
right?
think
Like,
what about have you looked at, and you might not have, this is a newer-ish step, not that old, but I'm not sure what version you guys are rocking these days. But we have a called a group for each step.
yeah, we have it in 6, yeah. Or 615 is what we're using. Yeah, it's there. I use it actually quite often.
That's where my mind's going. Does that not get you what you want?
It does, and I attempted that, and so when I do that though, it wants me to group by a specific field
Hmm.
of that object, my field to group by right there,
Yeah,
right?
right, exactly.
So not necessarily the entire object, but I guess I could use maybe a series of those.
Well, it gives you the whole object out, but this just says like, this is folders, right?
Yeah.
And so if I group by the like parent folder ID, I'll get a list of all the folders in each parent folder as a group. Like this sends out the whole object. The output of this is each grouping is a list of folders. So folders come in, a whole collection of folders comes in as entity results. This step will group them and output sublists for you, grouped by that property.
Right. Yeah. So when it puts out the sub list grouped by
Hmm.
that, like let's say I have 3 of those things that are the same entity folder ID, and
Mhm.
2 of them have some other attribute that's the same, and the third one has some other attribute that's different, right? I'm outputting that sub list based on that grouping, but I have a difference there, right?
Okay, so you have 3 people. Yeah, let's just say like you have 3. It's Pedersen.
Yep.
You have 3 people that come out, like, or 4 people, like my family, me, my wife, and my 2 children.
Yep.
Now, what's the further step you need to do? So like right here, that's what comes out of this for each step right now.
Correct. Yeah,
under each
list of those
grouping.
4. Yeah,
Okay.
out of that list of 100 or whatever, it's given me 4. It's given me that group of 4, right? And so then let's say they have you and your wife have a different address than your 2 children, right?
Okay.
So it output me the list of 4, but that's not necessarily the distinctness of that though, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, because I would group you and your wife together and then you and your kids together based on the difference in the address.
Okay. But there's some properties you don't care about, right? Like there's only
I care about all of them. So like in my example, I'm pulling in like a transaction. I'm trying to roll that up to a hierarchy, and I'm trying to sum all those transactions up to this level. I created a flow, like a, what do you call it? Like a flow data structure, just to be able to house that inside my flow. And so I'm populating that object with this aggregation up top. But when I for each over it, like if I put in 10, I'm basically getting 10 back, but I need to whittle that down to say, here's the distinctness of the roll up, right? If that makes any sense.
you've got like, okay, so you've got a transaction record with 4 properties.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's call it account amount, parent, and parent sum amount.
This is a tricky one, man.
Yeah, I know. I think
Okay, so account, amount, parent, and what did you just say?
the parent sum.
Parent sum. All right, and so this is a list. You have a bunch of these, right?
Yeah,
Like there's just a ton of these in some sort of data set somewhere.
exactly.
And you need to get every permutation of these.
Yeah, so let's say lines 2, 3, and 4, those accounts roll up to parent 1, 2, 3.
Let me just see here. I need to. Account will be A, amount is 1, parent is sum is is 1. And this is B1. So now this is distinct, right? You need,
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So basically, I want to get A1 and 1, like a distinct list of that.
mhm. Well, these are in the data, these are in a database.
Yeah, I mean, we're pulling it through with a custom step as a transaction object, but yeah.
I mean, you can query, we could repeatedly query the database.
Mm, I was trying to avoid that route. I mean, I see it in my head doing the SQL. I just needed sum and group by and do a distinct on it. But since I'm already bringing in that
Mhm.
object with a service, I would prefer to just work with that object and use steps or whatever in decisions to be able to do it. But as the nuclear option, yeah, I could just go write a query to do that.
Mm,
I have a random thought. What if we just took the data and concatenated it into like a string value and just use the distinct linguistics, distinct list of strings step?
that's interesting. You turn this into A1, A11, and this is B1, A11.
Yeah.
So loop through each one and create that.
Okay. I think I
I don't know what
see
you do
all
with
of
it after
that.
you have it there, though. Do you then like
Right.
loop that list and
Back.
then filter on the main list to get all of the A1, A11s?
That was going to be my next question. How do I get, once I get the distinct list of those strings back, how do I get the objects back after that?
Well, you could rule collection filter, I guess.
I'd
So
say,
but
Goodwill, say rule collection filter. You can do it a couple times to filter down to the list you're looking for based on the rules.
yeah, so if we had, let's just say, here's our distinct list of strings. Coming out of that string concat idea that Cam has, right? And then maybe for each it. This is not going to be performant with the large data set, this pattern. I'm just going to call that out. SQL will do this much better.
Yeah.
So you loop the, you loop the distinct list of strings and then do like a collection filter. Now here, you'd probably map it back to the data type. Like you'd have to use like split string,
Mm,
maybe by character. Like there might be a better way to do this, but split string by character positions maybe, and some get item by index steps that you'd have to like, because you're going to pass in and you're gonna have to deal with an item.
I see what you're doing.
Right, and then in the filter, let's just say like the list in collection, I'm just gonna do a fetch entity step and put some folders back in this flow. So let's say this is like your actual list from your service. So you pass this in, and what you would then do is come in here and write a rule. Oops, crap, wrong collection step. I prefer the rule. Filter. This back set up with folders. So edit. Well, I bet I just lost all that crap. 717. Let me get this back. Right, blah, 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 folders. So this is my list of data types. I'm gonna do some looping and concating to get my distinct list of strings, right? Which is what I'm just gonna say is here. Distinct string list. And I'm gonna loop my string list here. And then split by character positions, right? It's gonna be something like, I know the actual format and the and the length. You might have to get clever here, but let's say split at 0, 1. In our example, it's 0, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Right? And we pass in like item, which is the string, which is our concatenated string.
Yep.
Maybe we would, yeah, and then rule collection filter would be like input collection is our folders. And inside of this, we can write a rule. So let's assume we'd probably build this thing back up into an object, right? Back to a folder. But in here we have entity, and we can say like if entity, name, no, let's say equals, whatever. I'll say select value, and I'll do like split string first, right? Imagine I have some index steps here, right? And I'll say and entity, created by select value, and I'll just get the last item in the list. But we might have for the non-first, non-last items, you might have to use get item by index. Yeah. From that output, right? Let's assume you're building that. This will give you a list of every one of your objects that has the same entity, the same created by, or map those to your data object. Now those come out here, so then you can do some operations
right
on them, add them to a list, probably have a add item to list step, right? Where you grab them, and then put sum them and do whatever else you need to. But this is with a big data set, this is going to be pretty slow, right? Like there's a lot of loops here. Loop this list, and then you have to loop the entire return object list every single time for each code. So this will work, I think, but it's not going to be super performant if your list is quite large.
Okay. Okay, let me see if that'll work. I'll give that a go.
Okay. That was a tricky one.
And another one that Radley have, if he's still on.
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, so his question was whether we could conditionally require some of the objects on a data repeater to so that they wouldn't throw any validations, or if we could clear validations on that repeater.
So will I have a save button and a submit button on my form, and on the save button, I just want to save whatever information's there and allow the user to come back to it at a later date. So therefore, I just want to clear all validations. But the clear validations active form flow on the parent form doesn't seem like it clears validations within the repeaters. So I didn't know how to send the save button process to the repeaters to clear that.
The fields that you want to be optional on save, those are currently set to required or optional.
In the repeater itself on the main form is set to optional, but in the repeater, it's set to required.
Okay. So if you set them to, so they should be optional in the repeater.
Okay.
Right. And then you need the flow. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. On submit, when we actually want to move the process forward, I want them to be required.
Yeah, and I believe that's where you want to write your validation flow to take in the repeater, loop through each item, check to see if all the fields are required. Now, I don't know how you get it to map. Can you get the individual fields to highlight as well?
I don't think so. The only thing I can work off of from the main form is the repeater object, not the fields in the repeater.
Okay.
It's like I have to pass in the fact that I'm clicking save. I have to pass that into the repeater to clear the validations, and I don't know how to do that. Or I
Mm,
guess I should say I do know how to do that because I've done something similar. It just seems weird that I then have to map a dummy member of that data structure to capture a value to then know to clear the validations in the repeater.
mhm. So ultimately what you'd like is on submit to highlight the particular fields in the repeater that say these are still empty.
Yep. And on save, I want no validations on anything in the form at all. Like it can be a completely empty form and they just save it.
All right, how do you do this? Just a sec here, guys, sorry. I have no clue, but let's just see here. So here's the text box and let me bind this to my data type. I created this thing, I have a simple flow structure, EBT flow structure test. Okay, and this text box will be pick from data, form data, str1. Okay, and now outcome. Now, where do I specify it? Its optionality on the repeater.
On the form control, like on each form control, I think.
Yeah. So on the control, you only have one option and it's completed. But then on that repeater, if you had multiple buttons, right, you could pick, optional, required, not used.
Or does I'm sorry, what I asked a question, I didn't hear the answer.
Sorry. So if you go back to that, if you click on the form control there,
Yeah,
there. So your outcome scenario, you only have completed.
right, got it here. Yep,
Right.
got it. Okay. Thank you. You're probably better with repeaters than I am now, gladly. So let's just see here really quickly. So boom, debug. Okay, I got an empty form, that's fine. So let's drop a add button. Here, let's tag that. Add one. All right, so it's optional. Now, if I change it to required, that's gonna prevent me from doing that. Firm, if I add one, try to submit, it won't submit. Okay, great. So now what I need is to add my save outcome path, right? So this will be called save. Then here, some kind of save behavior. So I'll just put a create data step so I can loop back. And then I look, so I need to write some kind of rule in the repeater, right? There, if I, let's see, if I add a active form flow. Clear all validations. Clear particular validation, clear validations. Run this on value change. I can set validations. Like it's a lot of work with a big control. The validation issue is build array, build data. Set a validation here. Let me select my form control, which should be my text box. Break level will be constant, fatal. Message will be can't be null. Then here I'll say, let's see, empty is empty. True, set validation, otherwise false. Actually, I need to use clear validation, don't I? Set and clear validations. Control will be oops, form data text box. And then is empty will be select from flow, form data, text box, value. Is blocking, run on all outcomes. Okay, one for outcomes. How do I get do you know how to get the data repeater to have an outcome? Yeah, but you can't have a button on a data repeater. So this is probably, this is a DT probably, like this shouldn't exist here, right? So let's just see what we have here. Like, let me edit this back. Let me set this to optional. Let's just see where we are. Debug, run, add, submit. That works. Okay. But I didn't trigger active form flow at all. Edit my data repeater. Edit my active form flow. I'll say run on all outcomes. I don't know if that's going to do anything. Save this and rerun. Okay. So can't be null. Okay, so I can get that level to work, but now how do I get it to know what outcome path the form is moving down?
I think if you tried to add data and click save, it would be required again because it's viewing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, it's not. But why not?
Right.
Wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting that to work.
So is it viewing completed in air quotes as the, the first button you added? Like,
I mean, if it is, that's some weird lark, right?
or as the submit button in this case, right?
These should be equivalent from its perspective. It doesn't
That was-
know that it's save or a button or,
Right.
the form doesn't even know where it goes.
That was fully my expectation, and I didn't even try what you just did because I didn't occur to me that it would work.
No, I don't think this is supposed to be working given how it's designed right now.
Fair enough.
Wait, hold on. Oh no, here it is.
Oh, because we're not using it. Okay, so if
Optional.
you make that. Okay.
Oh, there's an outcome. Wait, hold on. Let's see what this does. This probably gets it to the state. This probably makes save. Okay, so button doesn't work. Save
There it
doesn't
is.
work.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Whew.
So, all right, we're in that state. It was treating the data repeater output as non-existent, let's move through. So optional outcome scenario, save. So technically these are, okay, so how do we get it? Outcome scenario. Override, add new row history. So the data repeater object itself needs to apply a validation only on a particular outcome scenario. And yet, but it doesn't know anything about where it's used at. Okay, I'm going to deselect run on all outcomes. And behavior change here. I think we're missing, I bet there's a really overly clever way to do this.
Yeah, I was mentioning earlier, the idea that I had was to put in a, legacy flow that I would then call and populate a hidden field in the repeater with save or submit, and then run an active form flow to then either set or move the validation based off if it's save or submit. But then I'm adding some sort of outcome number to the data structure, which is clunky.
It is for sure. I think there's probably something where like you have a invisible control on the parent form, right? And as you are tabbing through your repeater, you are inputting like a value that says complete or incomplete, right? And then you're doing something like on submit, you're checking that value and then forcing, I don't know how you make the call back into the data repeater though.
Yeah. That's where I keep getting hung up is how does the repeater know what I'm doing?
Oh. Damn, you didn't have this? You don't got this one?
No.
Oh, dude, I know we can do this. It's just a question of how dumb is the implementation. Gotta be like from a clunkiness perspective, like what's the clunkiness score?
Right.
So we could do it if the save was not used.
In the active form flow. Form data. Trigger component name. Let me see what trigger component name is. Maybe we only run it. Okay, interesting. Let's just, yeah. Good idea. Go pop up. I just want to see what the trigger component name. Actually, let me not do that. Let me make sure this is a null. Unrule for all outcome. It's an active form flow. A rule flow. Oh, I saw it. ESFA pipe, nothing. Nothing comes in from trigger. I'm not triggered by. Maybe because I don't have a trigger specified in the active form flow itself. Make output data is formed output. Yeah, I think you stumped me again here, Riley. I'm gonna have to try to get you an answer here. No clue.
All right. Yeah. No worries. Thank you so much for the time I'm looking into this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this one's tricky. It should be easier. It shouldn't be that difficult, but it is. All right, let me take this away and see if I can get an answer for you.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, I appreciate it. Have a good day, man.
Okay. All right.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody. All right. See ya.